just borrowing it. I'm just borrowing what? Hey! Where are you going? Come back! No! Come back! Come back! Come back!
I'm Victoria Scott from Motor1.com, unless you're a cop, in which case I'm not. And I've stolen this because I want to drive the greatest. And this is it. I am driving a 2000 Acura Integra Type R, and it is arguably the most legendary front-wheel drive sports car ever. It produced over 100 horsepower per liter from its naturally aspirated four-cylinder, which, at the dawn of the new millennium, was the domain of supercars. It handles perfectly, it shifts perfectly, and it has one of the most iconic engine notes in automotive history. I am enamored with it. The problem is, nowadays, you can't just go out and borrow one of these, or buy one of these, or even drive one of these. So I got creative. I'm an automotive journalist, which means that I can get basically any new car I want in the entire world for free for a week. And yet I still liberated this one from Honda's headquarters. Why? Because it's the best. This is the ultimate peak of front-wheel drive performance. There is nothing that can match it. There's no modern car that could hope to hold a candle to the perfect driving dynamics. And that red line? Come on. After all, this car has everything you could possibly want. 195 horsepower, an absolutely screaming VTEC twin-cam four-cylinder, 5-speed manual with absolutely perfect gating, sharp steering, great sight lines, and more importantly, it has nothing that you don't want. Heat shielding, sound deadening, vanity mirrors, cruise control. I mean, even AC was a thing that you could delete from the factory. It's just the most stripped down, simple car, and it shows it. It weighs just a touch over 2,500 pounds. I'm a Honda fangirl, I'll completely admit. But the thing is that every auto journalist admits that this is the benchmark for front-wheel drive performance. This engine sounds absolutely unbelievable, and that VTEC kick is just... God, it's so engaging. Beyond that, it's got the intangibles of Honda design that I think many people kind of overlook when they talk about why these cars are so revered. It's got beautifully designed pillars so I can pick out my lines as I'm going into a corner. The cabin feels airy. I've got plenty of space in here to move around. My seating position is nice and close to the wheel, but I'm not hunched. I'm by no means a professional driver, but this car is so eager to rev and so easy to fling through a corner that it feels like you can hop in and go hot lap Suzuka as a guest star on Hot Version. This car is so easy to drive fast and so engaging. It's too bad there's nothing like it today, so that I had to, steal it. Unless... This is a new Acura Integra Type S, and Acura has been pretty explicit that this is supposed to be the successor to this, down to the embossed fenders. So I guess the real question is, can a modern car really live up to what this promised? I'm gonna go find out for myself. This can't be as good as the original Type R. I mean, it's turbocharged. It still has VTEC, but it weighs more, it's got air conditioning, it's actually got back seats, there's a touch screen in it. There's no way it could actually measure up to the original greatness of the Integra Type R, right? I mean, the thing is, that sounds great. And the steering is ridiculously sharp, just as sharp as the original cars. That turbocharged motor has 320 horsepower. This car weighs 3,200 pounds. It's got a better power to weight ratio than the original 2001 Integra I was just driving. The way that the torque band is tuned is really interesting too. Instead of flattening everything out for instant throttle response, Acura's got the torque curve on this set so that as you roll onto the throttle, it swells forward. It feels like an old school turbocharged car. Just like the Acura Integra Type R, the Integra Type S has a helical limited slip diff, which means that when you toss into a corner and get get on the throttle, you get positive yaw. The car helps you pull itself through a corner, which is something that's very rare to find in a front-wheel drive car. Usually you just get torque steer or understeer. This actively pulls itself through. Just as with the Type R, the Integra Type S only offers one transmission, a manual 6-speed, and in typical Honda fashion, it is sublime. As an added bonus, unlike on the original Type R, this one will also help you blip your downshifts, which, if you've got big feet like me and heel towing is a challenge, is honestly really nice. It's not as hardcore as the original sports car, but why not have tech help out if we've got it? More importantly, this car has some of the intangibles that the Type R had that made it so memorable to drive. It's got these really thin A-pillars drawn forward, way ahead of the driver's vision, so when I'm peeking through corners, I don't need to dodge and weave around a sea of pillars. The windshield is nice and high up, the roof's got a lot of room, it feels airy in here. It's not claustrophobic like a lot of modern cars. The Civic Type R obviously is the same platform, it's the same engine, it's the same chassis, it's got a lot of the same bona fides. The difference is this one just feels more livable. It's a little bit dialed back, the seats are a little bit more comfortable. We talk about suffering for our performance, but the thing is I like the fact that the air conditioning is on. I like the fact that it's kind of quiet in here and that I can dip the dampers down into a softer setting and not get shaken around like a geode in a rock tumbler. And I still get to have the kind of fun that I was just having out in the canyon. We've used technology to give us all of the strengths of performance cars without any of the downsides. The thing is, on paper, this car isn't objectively that impressive. It has 320 horsepower out of a 2-liter straight 4 with a turbo slapped on, and it's got a hatchback. There are a lot of cars that fit this description on the market right now. The thing is the spec sheet just doesn't tell it all, just as with the original Type R, which had under 200 horsepower back in a time when the Supra was putting up over 300. The thing is if you compare this to a modern Supra, this is a barrel of fun. It's got so much good visibility. You feel like you're actually driving on these mountain roads instead of just piloting a pod down them. It's so difficult to account for soul in a car review, but this car still has it, just like the Type R did. And that's ultimately what drives me to love this car so much. It's perfect. It's perfect. I didn't hit the lottery. The Integra Type R was the pinnacle of 90s tech, and the Type S is the pinnacle of today's tech. So often, when we talk about technological progress as a bad thing, it's because manufacturers forgot what made their cars fun to begin with. If the car's still fun, it's doing its job right. The Type S represents 25 years of advances, but it's got the same DNA. I wish I had maybe learned that a little bit sooner before I had stolen this from the Honda Museum, but mistakes happen. Until next time, I'm Victoria Scott with Motor 1.